Overview on permissibility firms. A hijacks obligation-based definitions. Having obligation means that we have the best reasons, all reasons to take out or not taking action are valued comparatively on the basis of strength or reason, sufficient strength, whereas only the reason be equal and comparative reasons if no valid justification exists and all reasons sufficient and the comparison to other equally invalid reasons be reciprocity is reciprocal because the negative is two which given the strength advantage the regular agreement and permissibility subject to what a substantive advantage to one or two permissibility firms. A episode is going to start would be able to start a kind of reasoning since we have that we'd have that question have to question that reason should be otherwise we'd have a correct justification to do things like drink water, see it and intuitive. I told you my US best read believe me 7 is that 468 makes it for me harder 3 1 if there's anything else means if you use later if you want to shoot shorts me I'm trying to have no way taken to do for but you know reverse every time you serves out that shoot and drawing up first defense after your first one large sees lost 1 for 1 first 1 7 1 and see skip the 4 point for now 5 let's make a deal the negative must concede the affirmative contention level offense preemptive violate by reading turns on under the affirmative or hijacks A is fill think about different fill is real life legal because we have it make personal choices and choose different way to fill our other things like chain or like LD is only co-government which we get to be as much so much philosophy this education 100% unique to LDB is stress you it's multiple when you're in the framework intentional level often easier framework that suits my offense and assurance of the app being the right possible form and to see it times you have to justify the framework so longer than offense framework. The meta-ethics constitution for foundationally when I say inescapability both internal and external in a series of explanations either merely optional or non-universal constitutional solves we do not participate in action that has constitution for the action for instance playing chess for necessities and achieving checkmate but even that doesn't require that we have fun soften us. Moral claims can purpose be non-optional for internalism is true the truth for you should not murder will be dependent on a contingent feature external schools that murder is not going to be true independently of psychology but nothing can explain the agent's actions except something that motivates him and the fact that murder is wrong is still a role in the decision not to murder then the agent must have some motive and the agent puts it back to internalism by institutionalism requires no conceptual understanding of the external rules and common or internal alignment is merely based on the inherent foundation of the acting agent is thus always implicit in the decision. The act 3 action 3 only constitutes differentiation in terms of events for instance a robber rolling down has no chance of purpose and thus we can assign more or through it alternatively constitute aims to provide a unified movement under a common rule that evaluates all agents equally and objectively for epistemology is a lawful to assign an obligation to an alien based that earth rules as those rules go outside of the constituent scope of their knowledge my purpose of philosophy is only holds agents accountable for what it is possible for them to know inherently, which requires no further practical steps to knowledge and operate this way, which would be able to arbitrarily punish individuals for that which they know, which rules the purpose of ethics 5 percent straight for ethical frameworks are more likely to be correct because require fewer steps in the process of my framework always no inherent to the decision-making process every action 6 5 all frameworks require constitutivism we use frameworks to determine in different situations based on evaluations for their aims. For instance, we might use utilitarianism to determine whether to kill a baby, but we would never use it to determine the solution to a math equation. In fact, one consequence or procedural offense are relevant for the framework because they're inherently not constitutive. 2 is use episode competence. A resolve the probability frameworks and agents and arguments is impossible. Only a binary true, false, and true, and non-true decision. B episode competence pros higher quality field attributes incentivize strong defensive arguments against field, which actually test the underlying warrants and frameworks rather than just extending arguments for offense. Evaluate framework offense based on the conceptualization of the first and rather framework. A destroys expensive. The app used to reinterpret my framework means B approximately I wrote it so I know it better than you. 3 the constituent aim of the test truth false data resolution. A affirms to prove true and negate means to deny the truth of it. B all arguments assert their own truth and to vote for them at some and try by proving the resolution or some certain layers true because otherwise you no reason to read them. The Constitution is constituted of the U.S. government, the State Department. The Constitution establishes the government and defines the rights of the people. It lists the aims of the government. The Constitution establishes and defines the powers delegated to the government, and the standard is consistent with enforcement of Constitution. For one, binding morality is a political policy requires agreement. The Constitution is set by those who choose to remain within the U.S., which makes it a binding political solution. Ethics rules in 85. Justification received from premises we recognize acceptable for a working agreement on the questions of justice. Justice is not practical, metaphysical, or epistemological. District or agreement we avoid disputed philosophical questions because there is no way to resolve the political philosophy as a search for truth and not provide a basis for the political justice. And 2 normativity, political normativity within institutions derives from fulfilling for the procedure to train to all state action and makes the good framework irrelevant. Of course, Part 99. The source of normativity involves following procedure within the Constitution lays out for collective action, and action is if it is following these procedures, the law that has been passed must be deemed constitutional. The law of normativity derives from the carrying out of the procedures to establish it. Procedural normativity does not spring from the goodness of the outcomes. It is procedures themselves that confers normativity on those outcomes. Standing procedure must derive from normativity for constitutional procedure in order to act to make laws. In accordance, we must have a Constitution that defines the procedure for action. The normative force of the Constitution consists in the fact that it makes it possible for a function of a single unified agent to deliver for us teachers that unify a single agent breaks down the city cannot act as unit. 3 all refers to relationship between law and empirical conditions. Kelson and 34 audit as an easy category for comprehending legal data. The audit is the way in which the positive law connects material contention. I from the resolution result the United States also substantially reduced military presence in the West Asian North Africa region. The West Asian military presence is deployed since October 7 days of violation of the separation of powers in the War Powers Act of UK 1-8. Statutory framework to govern the force by the president establishes reporting requirements that Congress or resolution starts a 60-day clock withdrawal, unless Congress declares war, enacts authorization since October 7th for the war powers, a resolution and constitutional separation of powers, where powers have been only submitted with pre-planned strikes or reports, must be not be submitted for military actions in error criteria method. One can the defendant Congress is in scope and if you don't do the apple, do their apathy, for example, perhaps harassment is after right review, he's best qualified to write, but knows that if he says yes, he'll never actually complete the review. If he also say no, because it's better actual alternative to account for offering abstract action, which individuals most qualified action state affairs, not to those factor whether the otherwise that's whether he's holding responsible consequence, extra roles, reason and reason more, because agent control being quantified for aggregation impossible, no way to quantify different amounts of pain and pleasure. How can two edits equal migraine 5 induction pills, incoherent, justified past, justified future, no logical certainty, happen before, happen again, but 6 parts of that and states we can't know whether the action was good or not until after it was taken, which means the judge cannot determine whether the neg is good. I'll just send this stuff later and not read the advantage. 7 consequences purely impossible to make men of 5 and long-term study fees 80 who were people who made later living offering advice of political economic transmedia 2,361 forecast for more Senate. They said equal whether the all outcomes to human beings are poor characters and doctoring monkeys 8 measure and pain are additive or aggregate just like 2 edits equal migraine 9 self-defeating always trying to maximize as much as possible prevents actually using S, which means we never experience pleasure goodness and masochism. There are different standards for what a good sensation is. I.e. some people like saying to knowing what NC is desirable and reads was possible. 11 can't teach certain actions uniformly prohibitive. He's only more than the features one that actually maximize utility in that situation. I can send the extra like analytics and cards, just didn't read like the whole advantage.
Okay. Are you gonna send them before?
Either one, I don't really care.
Okay, I'll start consequences.
Okay. Okay, this should be sent.
Okay. I'll just start. What impacts matter under constitutivism?
Constitutivism?
Mm-hmm.
Well, constitutivism doesn't frame impacts, right? It frames frameworks because it's a meta-ethic.
Okay, so then under the meta-ethic that under constitutivism, which is a meta-ethic that determines framework, what framework?
Frameworks that only care about the constitutive features of actions. So, for example, we wouldn't care about like each individual desire, nor would we care about imposing some external rule upon people. So we're not externalists, we're not internalists, rather we're constitutivists, which means like we just believe that things that are constitutive to systems are what should be evaluated.
Can you provide an example of what's important under that?
The Constitution.
Okay.
Because we want it's constitutive for the U.S.
Okay. Would you say that like life is constitutive to like humans' existence on this planet?
No.
Why not?
Because life is intrinsic, or like you'd have to win that intrinsic value matters more than like instrumental. Or yeah, wait, I just don't understand why that would make sense. Like, why does your
meta-ethic exclude like impacts that discuss why it's important for humans to be alive and experience good
Our
things?
meta-ethic would exclude consequences. So if the way you're getting to death is via consequences, then yes.
Why is like violating the Constitution not a consequence of an action?
Well, I think it's a different form of consequence, right? It's just saying, like, we can just win that a certain action inherently would violate the Constitution, right? Like, I don't think there's anything.
But isn't that action, like, isn't that a consequence of someone doing something that violates the Constitution?
You would have to win the AF offense as consequentialist, and I don't think the AF offense is consequentialist. I think it says that the way that military presence is currently situated violates a certain act of the Constitution, which is bad.
Okay. The meta-ethic, can you explain the inescapability?
Yeah, sure. So this card is pretty good. It problematizes both externalist ethics and internalist ethics. It says that internalist ethics are almost too motivating to the point where they can't guide action, because it would mean that if we all had different desires, then there's no way for us to weigh between those desires. But externalist ethics, the problem with externalism is what internalism says, which is that people have individual desires, which would mean that externalism cannot guide action in the case that individuals have different desires. So the only way to resolve that is to evaluate ethics based on things that are constitutive to humans, because it would mean it resolves the problem of everyone having different desires because it's constitutive, which would mean that there is no different desire. But it also resolves the problem of internalism because it is binding, because it holds you to the fact that it's there because it's constitutive to you.
Okay. What is the larger implication of like violating the Constitution? Why is it a bad thing?
I mean, the act doesn't have consequences. We've read a framework that says that it's bad to violate the Constitution.
Yeah, but why?
well, every reason to prefer the framework, right? The Constitution is binding, the Constitution should have normative weight, the Constitution is the question of the resolution because law entails legal. Like, it's not like
Okay.
the impact is extinction, that's not the way Bill has worked.
Okay, got it. I'll start with that. Are there any arguments you read that weren't in the 1AC besides the ones that you sent?
But no.
Okay. Okay. I took 258. I'm sending it out right now. Okay. I sent it out. Oh wait, there's one card that didn't make it. Well, I'll start back again. Okay. Is it okay if I just put it in the body of the email?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. Like 4 seconds. Okay. Everything should be sent.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah,
get.
this is fine.
Sorry?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the order is going to be the overview, util, the framework, contention, and then an off-case position.
Wait, I'm so sorry. You said, like, yeah, say that again?
The overview, and then, like, the framework, contention, and method, like, util, and then the disad. Actually, util should be, it's just on the framework page, so it's like, it'll be top down, I think.
Wait, so the order is case?
Yeah, it starts on the overview, then the framework, and then disad.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay. Is everyone good?
Yeah.
Okay. First on permissibility negates the absence of proof in the acts populations indicated by ought and presumed that we default to statements being false, which is why we don't believe conspiracy theories. One year theories drop the argument, key to prevent frivolous theory. Yes, 2 theory else the debate ends after the 1 year hard debates good for education, which outweighs benefit, because the only reason why schools invest in debate negating is harder because the 1 year can blitz the theory blips and both of them, and the 2 years so error negative evaluate any value after speech arguments because they skew the debate, which is bad for fairness. On affirmative contention choice, the neg does not have to concede at contentions. There's no bright line contesting contentions. There's no different from comparing how important some of these impacts are in core debates. Go for decision-making is valuing the relative importance of arguments and being able to contest the arguments that the affirmative makes. You should vote neg in education. The only portable skill we take out of this round is about what philosophies we should use in the real which arguments we should make, and like how much we know about other frameworks. We should also vote neg on fairness. Their intent makes it impossible to be negative because we literally have to concede everything that the app reads in the AC, which means it can only be voted affirmative, which will allow them to win 100% of debates. If our interest is debatable, default to a competing interest incentivizes frivolous theory and causes substance crowd out. They say Stratsky, but double bind. Either the standard is not unique because I can still read a K theory and T, or therefore prevents the from reading theory producers is bad because it allows infinite app abuse and destroys critical education. On framework, the standard is maximizing expected well-being, preferred A, no intent force of distinction. If we foresee a consequence, then it becomes part of our deliberation, which makes it intrinsic to our actions since we intend it to happen. B, use epistemic modesty. View framework instances impact defense. They have to win 100% for their framework to exclude 100% of our impacts. And C, extinction comes first. It's the worst of all evils. Bomb Merit 18. Some potential best and more important than others. Humanity at least in loss of all future generation 500 trillion maybe an underestimate which equals probability times magnitude. Society should strive to have 500 trillion and to prevent a global catastrophe and to save a person's life with value of an equally such as very high value for reducing PCR and pleasure and pain provide the only coherent explanation of intrinsic goodness and badness is overcomes the is-ought gap. We're all at 22. The qualities of conscious experience are intrinsically good and bad by definition. The intrinsic based on internal properties, intrinsic goodness, not dependability, cause or constitutes some other thing. It has instrumental goodness. Only things that have intrinsic goodness or badness or experiential states that are intrinsically good or those that feel good doesn't mean that other things can be good or bad. And the instrumental way doesn't mean that every instance of pleasure will be good overall. Things particularly anti-medically leads to lots of pain down the road. Experiential states are intrinsically good or bad because having experiential quality of goodness is what it means for something to be intrinsically good. We've never experienced pleasure. We wouldn't have any idea what it means for something to have intrinsic value and still desirable. We wouldn't know what it'd be like for something to intrinsically justify our desiring. The mistake to think that descriptive and normative can never have left mentally or scientists taking an inventory of all qualities present in human experience. You have to mention the normativity of the experience in order to describe them accurately. They don't think there's any sense in which pleasure is intrinsically good, but they must be talking about feeling other than what we mean when we say pleasure. But pleasure is conceptually equivalent to intrinsic goodness. These normative properties are part of the empirical world, and non-neutral ethics are impossible. 307. Scientists telling us that human moral judgments and opposite national enterprise judgments are driven by a hodgepodge of mental disposition shaped by a hodgepodge evolutionary forces, biological and cultural, exceedingly unlikely and incoherent normal moral theory can accommodate moral intuitions. Deontology's intended view may be missing divides deontology turns values that do not distinctly deontological self-characterizations fail to distinguish deontology from other approaches to ethics. Consequentially, good treat people as mere object. Consequential refrains from treating as mere object mechanism for well-being and existing being process. Deontological interest will be tautological. These answers don't really explain anything. Skip the next card for now. They say we can't predict consequences, but one, empirically false, and their logic is a performative contradiction. Even opening my mouth to speak requires prediction, but drop a pen I know will hit the ground. Two, we are only responsible for reasonably predictable consequences. Self, infinite rigors, and post-hoc condemnation. And 3 yes, aggregation, moral equality entails equal weight to everyone's pain intuition. Data collection, empiric solver, index, even if there are close calls, the affirmative isn't one. On constitutivism, one Pascal's wager, any that morality is real, means that not to be has a massive impact, but there's no impact in trying. If morality isn't real, and 2, perfcon, they read the defense for their own position. Their theory arguments prove that skep is false, and 3 independent voter for moral repugnance. They deny the wrongness of atrocities like the Holocaust and the slavery because it doesn't necessarily violate the Constitution. That was Constitution A, and violence members of marginalized communities should not have to defend their humanity and ground your paradigms humanity and grounded the ground violence. This radical skepticism is just for control culture, which causes endless nihilism, destroys the basis of democracy. Democracy for framing the position at zero. It's completely at odds with lived experience. The burden of proof is on them. Skeptics like saying grass is orange. In the real world, things are still terrible, even if they don't necessarily violate the Constitution or don't follow under this constitutive meta ethic, which means you should prefer what's intuitive to you, which is that pleasure is good and pain is bad. Just save the most amount of lives. 5, truth testing bad. The debate is a question of whether the plan is a good idea. A, and slavery decide truth testing required reduces debate to arcane questions rather than policy making applied ethics or esoteric assumptions of white clash and the normative implications of the plan. And B, excuse debate. There are infinite assumptions that the app has to defend, that the neg is to win on defense. The open up the one easy to start defending infinite basic assumptions from scratch, which means we have to identify self-evident principle to derive all truth of the world and the plan in 6 minutes. Go to the dissad. U.S. dominance in the Middle East is strong but shaky. Military presence is key to countering revisionist expansion. China and Russia perceive great power competition as zero-sum. Pink is 23. The region undergoing transformation of Washington decision in Ukraine and zero-sum game perception called China to get involved in a strategic partnership with Iran and to North Russia, but the first action Iran price status been mitigated considerably by China, profits humiliated by them refusing to increase oil production. You have to quite the relationship is important. You should placate the UAE like Saudi Arabia's expanding relation, but realizing none of China in fact to be replaced the US by obviously negotiating process the US by no means out of the Middle East recent developments reflecting certain condition by the evidence in alliance to require the US restore present China to be able to replace America. Americans don't want to use more restricting for Beijing and withdrawals triggers China, Russia, Finland. The US is still a major player, but the plan triggers great power competition. Competition SCMP 21. U.S. goes back military pension and Russia fill the gap. U.S. to select the women goes for an area because competition Russian general includes back and both thinking exploit. They made an opportunity Russia to sell air defense systems, generally expand economic power, establish military base America's primary long-term security challenge. Vision seeking to North Africa and the Middle East here to do more to prevent China and Russia. U.S. partner troops from that is not countries are going to hedge. And great power competition with America's nuclear continues presence is necessary to prevent arms racing and miscalculation. Me 15. Some argue the U.S. could reduce involvement in the Middle East wars, destroy allies, ensure commerce, taking energy, the political competition to prevent any power from being able to block in the world long as great power peace. And if major powers are engaged, build up strong American presence in the Middle East, causing security competition to use through China would see needs to protect security of Southern Japan and India would see this threat trust with the road series of competition for security, which affects hostility with great power, conflict will intensify, and U.S. presence in is inevitable. He sees access leads to inevitable re-engagement, which turns their constitutivism offense because it means that we can't withdraw without eventually re-engaging, which would still violate the Constitution, the War Powers Clause, Grants 19. It is a conceding the U.S. can disengage without consequence, where Russian influence over intentional invasion, the potential resurgence of key terrorist organizations, investment, political instability, America's partners, and people that use support, which are likely to be followed by his engagements after Iraq, the sequel, since the surge in America, because some will be especially to go back or struggle, precipitate withdrawal could cause an overcorrection. Go back to the util page, the last card. That justifies util, it's impartial, specific to public actors, and results in infinite rigor to explains all value. Their constitutivism method can't collapse to utilitarianism because they specifically deny the validity of intrinsic meta ethics, which means that our analysis of pleasure and pain doesn't apply under their framework. Green 15. Util is misunderstanding right to strategy, more like a charge in different values based on different ways, lectures, alternatives, some kind of commentary. Util is impartial ideas, impartiality, such as decision makers regarding interests that equal manner for everybody. The answer is quality of conscious experience. You say it's not in the sense of things that make you smile. The quality of conscious experience. You go with everything you value. You say whether you care about that comes in the quality of experience. You say whether good works to make money, to have a place to live, to sleep is cold. What's wrong with being cold is just bad. Nothing from the pleasure and pain is good. Danger for resolving public experience is produce best overall experience for because maximizing happiness from the criticisms is right. But case be kind of unrealistic. I'll send this after, but. I'm reading an independent voter here. Reading treats as an independent voter for academic honesty and truth seeking, hidden arguments, manipulate the structure of debate to avoid substantive argument testing, and allow people to win by artifice rather than argumentation. They avoid the topic of 3 simple tricks and red herrings that no rational decision maker would honestly consider politically to late-breaking debates which avoid clash, no new extrapolations, give us new response and drop them for deterrence, independently should just hedge against any argument that doesn't have a clear implication, a warrant, claim, and impact starting in the 1AC, and you should give us new responses if they blow them up in the 1AR.
Are you good for cross?
Yeah, let
What's
me
a
just
trick?
send it.
Oh,
Sorry, let me send the thing. Do you need the shell?
no, it's fine.
Oh, okay.
Alright, good for cross.
Yeah.
What's a trick?
Sure. In this shell, we identify it as arguments that are intended to be dropped, or hidden arguments that manipulate the structure
Alright,
of debate,
so
avoid substance.
when you read a util framework, you intend for me to drop extinction outweighs, right?
Not necessarily. Like the intent of that argument. Like I think there's a big
So
distinction
what
between
argument in
reading
the act had an
framework.
intent for you to drop it?
Sure. I think arguments specifically that we indict are arguments that don't have a clear claim word and
So if I win
impact
so if I win your arguments don't have a claim warrant and an impact, then you violate your own shell?
No, I think our definition also goes beyond that by saying that tricks are specifically designed to be arguments that
Right,
no
so which
rational
argument
decision
in the
maker would
act
consider.
was a trick? So which argument was intentionally hidden for you to concede and didn't have a claim warrant and an impact?
Yeah, I think just the entire overview section, these are arguments that are clearly designed to be dropped because they're formatted in a very
affirms,
specific
hijacks
way.
obligation definitions. How is this an argument that's a trick or something that is intended for you to be to concede?
It says these arguments are hidden in other arguments, for example, you have
they're so
no
clearly
RBIs
outlined
in the
there. It
middle of
literally
one of
says,
series,
one,
legit.
permissibility affirms.
A lot of these arguments just don't have impacts, you'd say, otherwise we'd have to have a proactive justification to do things like drink water. I don't understand how that's a full argument.
But okay, let's
And
talk
I
about
think it's designed to be dropped.
Let's talk about your
because it's,
dissent
hidden in the
now.
middle
You
of
say
it.
extinction outweighs.
Mhm.
Read me a line in your card that says it goes nuclear, that says that it causes extinction.
Yeah, the Mead 15 evidence specifically says that if major powers were engaged in build-ups, a strong American presence in the Middle East would suppress security competition. If it withdraws, other countries would build up their own forces.
And that's extinction.
People would see it as a threat to their own security. It would drive hostility, and a risk of great power conflict would intensify. And the Brand 19 evidence also specifically talks about how America is inevitably re-engaged in conflict.
So what's the impact to nuke war? Per the 1NC, I don't see one.
Well, I also, we do make an extinction argument, but also nuclear war is just terrible,
Okay, sure.
independent of extinction.
Does
It
extinction,
leads to many
does
lives
extinction
and
outweigh in
loss.
every instance though? Per the,
We would argue that extinction outweighs your meta ethic and your framework, which
right,
is
so
just,
what instances does extinction not outweigh?
I don't think that's really relevant because
Well,
we're
I'm
making an
asking you,
argument why
because you've read
extinction outweighs.
okay, so is the neg framework normative?
Yes.
Okay, so if the framework is normative, what instances do extinction not outweigh in?
We would argue extinction comes first.
Always.
There has been no situation that you've
Okay,
given
so
that
if
would constitute
If it
a
were the
situation
case
in which
that we could
extinction
like
doesn't come
exterminate
first.
30 Jews to stop extinction, should we do so?
I think, well, one, that's a hypothetical scenario that wouldn't happen,
Which a
so
normative
it's not
framework has to defend
relevant
an
to
answer to
util,
because
but
that's
also-
what normative means.
Sorry?
Well, a normative framework has to defend an answer to that question because normative implies that your framework can guide action in every instance. So in the instance where it would be permissible to like exterminate 30 Jews to stop extinction, shall we do so under an extinction first framework?
Yeah, but I
Okay.
also don't think, no, not yeah to that scenario, 'cause that was just kind of me speaking out loud. But I think even, like, util being normative is the fact that it can guide action in real life scenarios, not
Like
every
maybe a
single
real-life
hypothetical
scenario, no.
instance that is imagined. I also think, like, unless you can prove that there is a situation in which we would have to
Okay,
exterminate, like,
that's fine.
a specific population to save the entire planet, then I don't really have to answer.
Okay, I'll start off.
Okay.
Okay, 142 left. It's going to be the aft, then the util NC, then the disad. I'll send the cards on the disad. Is it fine? Oh, actually, there's a lot. I should probably.
For AF, what do you mean by, like, do you just mean?
Like the aft starting on the meta ethic, then
Okay.
the ethic, then the offense, and then the util NC, and then the disad. Or no, the util NC, the like tricks shell, the disad.
Okay. And you are sending the doc, or?
Yeah, there are cards on the disad.
Okay.
Okay, it's sent.
Can you say the order?
Yeah, just the aft starting on the meta ethic, the contention, then the util NC, then the tricks independent voter, then the disad. The cards are for the disad are sent. Just let me know when you're
Good.
cool.
They've conceded you should evaluate framework offense based on the contextualization of the person who reads the framework, otherwise it's the most proximate because I wrote it so I know it says better than you extend the meta ethic. All frameworks require constitutivism. You concede that we use other frameworks in different situations based on evaluations of their aims. For instance, we might use util to determine whether you kill a baby, but we would never use it to determine the solution to a math equation. Extend that the Constitution is constitutive of the United States because that is definitionally what the Constitution is to the United States. Conceded that all refers to relationship between law and empirical conditions. The Kelsen evidence says that ought designates a category for comprehending law. That means that the only question of the resolution given the word ought is one of legality, which means that the NC framework has no basis in terms of the resolution outweighs because it's a question of literally the terms of the resolution, and the constitutivism stuff should be easy reason to just disregard util automatically, but extend the epistemic competence, resolvability, calculating probabilities of frameworks and arguments possible. Only a true false binary can ensure a non-arbitrary decision. We'll get to that on the modesty flow in a second, but the SCAP IPIs, there's no warrant for any of these arguments contextual to the Constitution would not allow things like slavery or the Holocaust, because the Constitution would say that these are actively bad, and you would, if you were to, for example, murder something, that would be a violation of the Constitution. The SCAP IPIs also just are not coherent, because I did not read a skepticism affirmative, which means that this argument has no basis, but also are taken out by the fact that you've conceded that argument that it's only the constitutive of the resolution to evaluate the truth or falsity of it, because that's the only thing that, because affirmative proof your negates your false, which also answers all of your truth-testing arguments, because it doesn't matter if their arguments are true pragmatically, because our argument is the only thing you can evaluate. Also means that theory shell goes away, because it's not constitutive to debate, it's just a question of something that would be theoretically good, but our arguments are only things that are constitutive matter. Extend the offense, which is that the United States ought to substantially, or extend the offense, which is that West military presence in places author, which is a violation of the Separation of Power and War Powers Act, which is cold conceded that you turn to the argument is incoherent, because just because it's inevitable, one is consequentialist, which you concede it doesn't matter under our framework, and two is it just because it's inevitable doesn't mean that it's good to say that it's bad in the instance of the affirmative. A risk that it doesn't happen in the future outweighs the util NC, no intent for extinction, no impacts, consequences working under constitutivism. They don't matter under my framework. The epistemic modesty stuff, you concede the competence modesty is irresolvable. You see incoherent to evaluate the risk that a framework is true. What does that even mean? Extinction first doesn't matter under our framework. Constitution doesn't matter. The question of if you're alive to follow the Constitution. Rather, the Constitution is just a question of what you would do if you're alive. Commanding pleasure a coherent argument. One is off fallacy just because it's inherent doesn't mean it's good. Two, not a legal question, which means the odd stuff takes it out. The non-util ethics impossible argument. One card says cause is impossible, not non-util. Two is the aff is a non-util ethic, which proves that it is possible because we want that our aff is a good idea. The util is a partial argument. One is you did accept part of this tag made absolutely no sense, but two is that there's no reason why the constitutivism argument collapses. If anything, it's a turn to this argument because your argument would collapse. The tricks are independent voter stuff. There's no violation of this argument. I didn't read any tricks, and you should hold a line for a tuner to extrapolate what the violation is. The tuner does get to answer these arguments. You violate it. You intended to for me to concede your arguments about why I don't get one of your theory, or why presumption negates, which were at the top of your dog, which would mean that presumption was negates was hiding, and permissibility negates, which means that it did have an intent to hide. The meta ethic also takes out the theory, which was done about the dissent. Extinction, inevitable industrial society, one unsustainable restaurants, 21 vegetation, have to extinction, environment compromisation, and 15 time in the background, extinction, extinction, sexually undeniable population, incredibly food problems, diversity, loss of aviation, pandemics, 2 tech, early in 18, data sex, self-replicating robots, the atmosphere, cause extinction, valley program, super intelligent, navigatable, super gold, business disasters, breakdown, vacuum, mega stable, vacuum, mercury, black hole, accelerate land, and see through impact nuclear wars, devastating, but starting civilization, but isolated islands, survive, church, and green 18, red, program is very remote inside the Antarctic, and strong winds increase the time for radioactive loss to reach against sunlight, vegetation, animals, and ice provide water mountains for section and tsunamis, volcanoes, geothermal heat, cut the cartage, geothermal heat, salts, winter. They continue Aboriginal people around Asian Himalayan plateau. They North Central Island are hostile and constant where nuclear winter islands were surrounded by overworking volcanoes that help survive during still water, tallest famine, Durgenberger 17 calories from leaves, mushrooms, fed chicken, mushrooms used to be tolerant, climate would cause the ocean, causing nutrient rich water, facilitate algae feeding ocean, tech always been RD 20, novel tech, locks in perpetual suffering, catastrophe, realm, natural causes are 2, 1 in 2000, survives with centuries, humanity disaster 1 in 6 astros are suffering on astronomical scale, denying what would be irreparable, negative life is irreparable, no life impossible through things that is nice, through possible next 100 years can't rebuild it. Jacob 17 industrial 1 is also the requisite school oil and Oregon is not irreparable, and society so would not be able to have class scope, and no tuner impacts. They didn't read impacts that are decided. It's incoherent if they get to read one of the tuner. Or I can send like a mark doc if you need it.
Okay. Or just on the dissent stuff, what did you not read?
The Jacobi evidence I cut at developed fast enough. The minority evidence. Oh wait, no, I didn't cut that one. I cut the. Which one was it? Oh, the isolated island survive card. I cut at geothermal heat.
Okay. There are new cards, so let me just see this. Okay, it should be at the very bottom under the heading that says Spark. Can everyone let me know when they're there?
Oh, what's the order?
Yeah, the order is going to be, the util page, the meta ethic, the offense, then the disad.
Okay, you said the cards were at the bottom?
Yeah,
Okay.
where it says 2 in them. Oh, the tricks voter, okay, wait, let me give the order again. So it's util, meta ethic, the tricks voter, the offense, and then the disad.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'm good.
Okay. Is everyone good?
Yeah, everyone's good.
Okay, perfect. Starting on util, they conceded the raw evidence which should frame your entire decision in this round. They conceded that pleasure and pain are the only coherent explanation of intrinsic goodness, and that this is the calculus that we should use to determine which impacts matter and which meta ethics come first. The raw evidence is really good. It says that qualities of conscious experience are intrinsically good and bad by definition. And there are no experiences that we don't that we have that are not filtered through pleasure and pain. We can disagree on what the subjectivities in which people experience in terms of pleasure and pain, but that doesn't deny that pleasure is intrinsically good and pain is intrinsically bad. It didn't answer this, which means that you should use this to determine when you're weighing between constitutivism and hedonism. You should go to their meta ethic now. They extend several arguments. First is that you can use util to determine other moral situations, but this is not how we defend util. Util is a normative statement, and it guides actions in every instance, which means that even if you wouldn't use util to solve a math solution, solving a math solution is not a moral situation. It doesn't require any sort of moral calculus like deciding whether we go to nuclear war or not does, which means it doesn't. This analogy doesn't make sense. The second argument was that the Constitution is constitutive to the U.S. We'll get to that on the offense page. Third is that ought means legal, but this is not a reason as to why you should prefer constitutivism over util. We answered truth testing, and that we should the truth testing and hyper emphasis on the resolution, which was above. You can extend those arguments that it leads to an insularity. This reduces debate to argument questions, and a hyper focus on semantics and whether what each word of the resolution means, even though that's not the overall purpose of debate or the implications of how debates should play out. Second is that it skews debate because there are infinite assumptions that the app has to defend, i.e. we have to defend every single that the neg has to defend, i.e. we have to think about every single definition that the word that the resolution entails, because in many debates ought is also used to explain what we should do morally as a moral obligation, not as a legal term, which means that our interpretations should still matter in this debate. The fourth argument takes in is epistemic confidence. You should extend that you should use epistemic modesty. That was at the top of the util page, specifically Pascal's wager that says any risk that morality is real means that not doing the app has a massive impact. They say it's completely arbitrary, but it's not arbitrary because that it literally limits the decision calculus down to any risk that morality isn't real, which is specifically really high if we win the dissent flow, which we'll go to in a second. On the tricks voter, we're not going for it as an independent voter, which means that their turn of the violation doesn't matter. We went for it as a reason. We're going for it as a reason as to why we get new responses to badly warranted and implicated arguments, which means that there is no specific voter impact to their turn, but we can just agree that we both get new responses to terribly implicated arguments. On the disad page, extend it here. Current U.S. military presence crowds out China and Russia involvement, but withdrawal green lights fill it. Encourages our allies to cozy up to authoritarian powers. Great power competition in the Middle East causes arms racing and allied prolif as countries lose faith in the U.S. security guarantee, increasing miscount, which goes nuclear. Allied prolif outweighs aid time from countries like Japan, India, and Saudi Arabia rushing to acquire nuclear weapons, insulate puts countries in sugar Mexico turns theory. This dissent also turns case because they considered the Brand's evidence that talks about how re-engagement is inevitable, which means that the violation of the Constitution, which happens through violating the war powers clause, will happen over and over again if it leads to, if we withdraw from the West Asia North Africa region, because it's the Brand evidence specifically says that hasty withdrawals are likely to be followed by hasty re-engagements, which means that even if it's true, which means that even if you reject the consequentialist framework, we still outweigh under the constitutivism because we specifically have a scenario in which the Constitution is violated at a bigger extent than the affirmative solves for. Independently, we're going to answer the spark turns here. First is no survivors. 1, even if people survive, they inevitably die from the aftermath. Con 18. Even a small nuclear would toss 11 billions of suits, superflex on their back into space, cooling the planet. Nuclear winter caused famine society cease to exist. Survivors face horrific sounding nuclear famine. Ecosystems would die. The stake is infinite. We have to know right to gamble. Lose the game will be over. Anyone else will never get a chance. And tech development solves all their scenarios in space. Call all these are also add-ons with the PS 21. Planetary defense make the case for further investment in space. Stagnation is a recipe for extinction. Various threats to existence. Asteroids, supervolcanic eruptions, supernovas, gamma, nuclear climate, pandemic, and AI, and extraterrestrials. What to do? Attempt to live with pre-industrial society. Splitting states don't care. Problems are inevitable. We shall have no defense without a great deal more scientific knowledge. Extinction isn't inevitable because there's no runaway AI and no impact. Pierce 22. Dangers of AI are any access to the right depends on whether it's even possible to create AI smarter than we are. Current gen AI only capable of doing one thing. We try to make them do something else. Allow the data to perform. A machine always learns if it's bad data, but doesn't make the machine smarter. A machine can only learn something if it's fed an extremely massive amount of data. There's no bunkers or isolated islands that can solve. Bunkers fail. Gal 19. The bunker developed to improve survivability despite the vast number of bunkers. Recent advances tech for nuclear weapons are threatening to make minimum civil defense standard obsolete. Fusing technology improves and the pressure levels experienced by bunkers before exceeded desire rating, and long-term survival is impossible to rescue 18. Post-war survival, small bands of people might persist for generations. Their adaptive capacity stopped by inbreeding and genetic defects from exposure to radiation increase. Ultraviolet be a classic recipe for extinction. Extinction. All of these cards prove that nuclear war. There's no recovery from nuclear war because people inevitably die from the aftermath since things like famine and extreme nuclear winter. But independently, we're going to exceed the extinction outweighs offense here. That was the bomb Verde evidence that says that some catastrophes are vastly more important than others, such as extinction, because it leads to the loss of all future generations. If you're framing this under Pascal's wager, the risk that you condemn like the entire world to extinction should definitely frame the way that you think about which meta-ethic is more important, because you should think about whether it's more important to save millions of lives from the chance of great power conflict or nuclear war than rather than following a meta-ethic that prevents the Constitution from being violated. Independently, we've given you a reason as to why the dissent outweighs under their own framework and meta-ethic, because it leads to re-engagements that violate the Constitution.
Okay, 141 starting now. It'll just be Spark. Let me know when everyone's ready. Cool.
top level is that they conceded both scenarios for start to extend the asterisk argument, which is the minority evidence, negative value to life, always life in itself, because negative value is worse than no value. Conceded that AI becomes impossible to overthrow, which causes infinite torturing in the next 100 years, which means extinction is net good, because it would cause infinite suffering. That means it turns the entirety of the dissent, because, well, even if they win their arguments that extinction does happen, our argument is that extinction is good, because it's worse to be alive in infinite suffering, torture shames, than being dead, which is being dead, which is the negative value to life, always life in itself, which is conceded minority evidence. Their only argument against is that there's no runaway AI. Our argument is not runaway AI. Our argument is just that the AI develops enough to become infinitely torturing and also becomes over controlling, which is not a runaway argument. You don't say AI leaves the argument. They also conceded the Bradshaw evidence that extinction inevitable from industrial society, overpopulation, hundreds of plants and animals, species are already extinct. The humans are next. The probability of extinction is 15 times that what it was in the growing population. Overpopulation causes extinction through lack of clean water, famine being rampant, soil degradation, biodiversity loss, toxification of the earth, and increased resource consumption. Nuclear war now is better than nuclear war later, and it serves the end of industrial society before asterisk, and those processes that cause overpopulation can happen, which is the Jacobi evidence. Industrial society would not be able to recover if we destroyed it. Humanity has already used the easily accessible fossil fuels that are required for early industrial societies to go full-blown industrial dustscape. The information will be on the resources will be the space coal scenario 1. They have 0 1 for why space coal is possible, which means that the collapse of industrial society is not preferable via the Jacobi evidence. 2, even if we move to space, we can still make AI go rogue, which means control the internal link. 3 is overpopulation still happens in space because we still are overpopulated. Then the link, the church and green evidence. Cold conceded every argument that this argument makes. Our evidence indicates that the North Central Island is uniquely located near warm oceans created by volcanoes, which allows life to flourish during the last ice age and will allow humanity to survive the 1A scenarios. The North Central Island is a specific island for a couple of conceded reasons out of the card. First, empirically proven from ice age scenarios that it can survive sort of scenarios. To be that it's located near warm oceans, near warm volcanoes, and geothermal stuff that allows life to thrive during the radiation that comes from nuclear war, which means that every single war in the church and green card was conceded, which means you should hold a line. They've conceded they don't get new impacts in the 200 because it was their burden to justify their impacts in the 1C. Reading a dissad without impacts and then extending new impacts in the 200 is incoherent, especially when we read the impact during the con evidence. 1 doesn't say extinction. 2 conceded from our card that the church and green evidence resolves all these scenarios. The famine argument was already answered above. It's incoherent because the islands have food and now so if radiation doesn't affect the island, it also doesn't affect the island. We've also conceded the arguments in the Jerkenberger evidence that says that there is no famine because if you keep total calories from leaves which are able to create chickens, etc., which are all reasons why famine doesn't happen. The inbreeding argument about how the inbreeding argument about long-term survival is not possible and not specific to North Central Island. They already live on the island and are inbreeding now in the status quo, which means there's no reason why they will inbreed in the future. The bunkers fail argument, we never made a bunkers argument. We made an argument about how people who are already living on islands will not get affected, which was conceded. The tech solves all their arguments. Stuff is incoherent because tech is what created the scenarios in the first place. Things like overpopulation, AI, etc. are the reason why this happened, but also hold the line. It only says that it resolves space coal, not that it resolves the specific 1C scenarios like asterisk, which means that you should hold the line for voting these arguments. They say even if people survive, they die from the aftermath. That card was already answered above in the church and green evidence, but also you should hold the line. The warrant for the card, it does not say extinction. Look, this way is really easy. They say conceded no 200 impacts, which means you should not evaluate any of the 200, but even if you do, like, they've conceded the church and green evidence, conceded asterisk, which means church and green shouldn't even matter, conceded overpopulation, it should just be like game over. Okay.